want to start the stream. I should pull up the page, really, so I can see if anyone's there. Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Doing that thing where it's not going to the /live doesn't go to the...
No, /live doesn't work anymore, but if they're on YouTube, it will...
Should say we've got something live going on.
If you go to our channel, it will say we're live. Let me do that now.
Can I jump on YouTube somehow?
Yeah, just go on our channel on YouTube, and you can chat in there with our good listeners.
Is it setting this as unlisted again or private again?
It'll go live, but when we finish and stop, it'll make the final video unlisted until we make it live.
Okay, so it's not showing up as live.
Ooh.
Again for me. Have they changed the stream key again?
I don't think they'll have changed the key again.
Do you reckon?
Why do they mess about with this stuff?
Because YouTube. Because Google. Even.
Yeah.
I can see if I go on our dashboard, I can see it. So why doesn't it show up in the channel? You sure we don't have to set it to...
Alright, let me go on the dashboard. Actually, I need to switch accounts to do that. Why do they mess with this stuff? It worked before.
Hashtag switch accounts.
Stop it. No, I can't find the dashboard. The dashboard is showing me nothing. Can you change it, Random?
Okay. Yeah, so let's see. Visibility. If I go public and save, does that now show up on the normal channel? Yep, that's showing up on the channel now.
Right, so if I refresh that, I should be able to see the live option. Yes, there it is.
Now.
And now I can chat with everyone who's there, which is probably no one at the moment. And Memorial Day weekend.
I think you're sending it back through. Yeah. Someone's sending it back through.
That was me. Memorial Day weekend is notoriously quiet in here anyway, so we may not get any Americans. May not get anyone.
Isn't it some kind of crazy bank holiday for y'all?
Yeah, it's a bank holiday weekend here and Memorial Day there, so people probably aren't listening to some old farts talk about old video games. But that's fine.
Speak for yourself.
I've changed my microphone and it seems to be very, very directional. So we'll work around that, I guess. Let's see what's happening.
Oh, I see you're in the New York Toy Fair booth.
I am. Yes. I've visited...
How much did that set you back to buy all of that gear?
Quite a bit, to be honest, because I had to have all the banners printed. I had to get a table. I had to get some Coleco tabletop games and a weird monitor.
You didn't just find it all in the skip out the back of the convention center.
It was in a container in Texas. Okay, well, let's try that again. Welcome everybody to live news for May 2021. I hope you've had an enjoyable long weekend wherever you are. Or a normal weekend if you're in an odd place like Europe. They're all odd over there. So, let's kick off with what we've been up to this month. We've no Scott with us. We think he might be riding his motorbike around DC. Against Joe Biden's wishes, but that's the kind of guy he is. So, first of all, you will have heard a very controversial statement in Dinosaur Pie from Simon, who seemed very sure of himself when he said the Earth was round. And he actually stated it as a fact, so we may need to pull him up on that at some point if any of these idiots who think it's flat manage to prove it. So what else has been happening? Arcade Club is open, and we're planning a trip up there in July. We'll give you some final news on that, because we're still waiting for final confirmation that we're coming out of full lockdown in June, so Can't really plan too much till then, but fingers crossed, we'll be having a trip up to Arcade Club middle of July. So if anybody is available to join us there, then feel free. Like I said, I'll update you on it further next month. Some more gaming venue news. Play Blackpool has been announced for October 23rd and 24th. So we'll also be planning a trip over there and hope some of you will join us. Don't think we'll do a booth there because they're so damn expensive. But we'll go along for a weekend of games and fun and burger and beers and all of that Blackpool stuff. Book news. The books are on general sale now. Everybody who backed it on Kickstarter should have received everything they're due. So the books went on general sale. You haven't, but I've got them in a box here along with some other random stuff. Random stuff for random. So it will be coming soon to Amazon as well. So and all other good bookstores. So as and when that happens, I will update you further on that. I've been doing a ton of work in here in the game room. I'll take some video and some pictures at some point. I'll put them up on the website and put them in the show notes. But I sold a fruit machine I bought. Didn't buy it. I got it years ago for nothing. Just had to go and collect it about 45 minutes away. Got it for nothing. All I had to do to it was spend about £5 on a piece of tube, because as you put coins in, they kind of stack up flat inside this tube, and it has a plate at the bottom, so when you win, the plate kind of shoots out the bottom coin. But because it was set for old coins, they weren't kind of landing flat. Some would go down the tube vertical, and then it couldn't shoot them out. So B&Q over here, which is a DIY store, for those who don't know, B&Q sell a piece of drainage tube, which is just about exactly the right size for the new 10p coins. So I had to cut a length of that and put that in, and that is all the money I spent on it. And that's pretty much all the work I had to do on it, apart from resetting the reel tapes and things like that. And I sold it last week. I think it was collected for £150, which wasn't bad. So that's gone, made some room in here. And I've got a Mega Touch as well, an upright cab version, not the bar top. And that was playing up a bit. Had to replace the BIOS battery, had to do something to the hard drive, just reseat everything in there. And that's now fully working again, so I've been playing on that. I'll keep that for a while because there's some fun games on it. I don't know if it's a keeper forever. You know, I might switch it out and get something else at some point, but I'm enjoying that at the moment. I've got some more work done, so I've got the sit-down Sega cab as well that I've been working on, which is not original. Well, it's an original cab, but it had no guts inside it, so I've put a PC in there, an amp in there, and I set it up so it plays some driving MAME games. It plays Cannonball, which is like a homebrew version of Outrun, so you drop the Outrun ROMs in there so you can play full Outrun, but you can configure it, you can make it so you have infinite time, so you can get to see all the courses and things like that. It's got that on there. It's got some GameCube emulation, which gives me Crazy Taxi, 18-wheeler, and something else. I can't remember what else. It's got some Sega AM2 emulation on there, which gives me Daytona, Sega Rally, all of that kind of game. And it's got PS2 version, I think it is, of F355. So it's a multi-racer cab. And I've been working on that. Picked up a device from Ultimart called the UHID, which is like a USB interface, and you can you can use it for just straight buttons, you know, arcade buttons if you want. But I got it because it lets you do analog, so I can wire up the original pots on the pedals and use those as inputs. So I've been setting that up. So I'm getting there with it now. I just need to calibrate the pedals and figure out how I wired the gears, because it was a workaround to get the gears working. And then I need a dashboard, which I've sourced. I just need to organise getting it here. And then it needs a screen. I can use a flat screen for now just to, you know, play on the thing. But eventually I want the full CRT tube, which aren't cheap. And because it's a PC, I need one that will run at 30 frames. So, because I'm using VGA, and those can run up to like 300 quid over here now to get one that's working. So not too much to do on it, but just those finishing touches that can take a little while to get right. And then at some point when I've done that, I'll be looking for a vertical monitor setup, a cab, as a project to do MAME for vertical games, because I've got the MAME cab, but it's only a fairly small monitor. So when I'm playing vertical games, it really doesn't give you much of a display size. So I'd like a vertical MAME as well. And depending on space at that point, that might be when the Mega Touch goes, but we'll see. What else did I do? I went through all our Expo kit, which has been in storage for ages, and we refresh it every so often. So the stuff we have in our booth, I had to get rid of the carpet random. It got a bit damp and musty in storage, so I figured it had finished its working life. So I had to get rid of that, unfortunately. So that's gone. But I trimmed out all the stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we used to use and don't use anymore. So I've kind of tried to condense it so it doesn't take as many trips to set up the booth between the car and the booth now. So hopefully we'll have an expo soon. More news on that possibly to come very soon. We'll have to wait and see. And that, apart from having a barbecue today with all the family round and drinking a shit ton of Guinness. So you've got a bit of a tipsy mic here right now, and I'm enjoying a Guinness in my CG Adventures Stein, as you can see on camera. That's about me for this month.
What I've been doing, whilst Bitcoin was still not dead, I took a little bit out and bought an Oculus Quest 2, and I've been having a bit of fun with that, playing a lot of driving sims, and also installed a Virtual Boy emulator onto it because my Virtual Boy is a bit knackered, and I've been too lazy to do the required work to get one of the screens being as nice as that was or should be. So I've now got all of that running on the Quest, which works very well. Been having a good bit of time as well playing Myst on it, the version of Myst VR, which it's kind of works really well, and also it turned out like I kind of remember a bunch of it from playing it. Christ, how I must have been quite young at the time when it came out. But seemed to remember going through quite a lot of it with my mate. Thought I'd remember at least some of the puzzles, but it turns out I don't remember a fucking thing about it. So it's quite good fun just sort of navigating this virtual space and just exploring and trying to figure out like where everything is and what everything is. And that's actually been quite good fun. And also the other day, came across a Doom 3 source port that runs entirely on it. So I've been having a bit of a play on that as well, and that's quite nice. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. Dirt Rally 2, absolutely fantastic on it. I've got the wheel set up as well, so that's been pretty fun. And bit of truck driving simulator to chill out as well at times, and then sort of dabbled in some more sort of hardcore circuit racing stuff, but not fully yet. I'm hoping to sort of do that soon. Kind of briefly thought about going back to iRacing, but there's the whole sort of subscription nature of it and the amount of time it really sort of I'd feel I need to put into it to actually compete in it properly. I just don't want to sort of invest that at the moment. Other gaming stuff I played, for whatever reason, I started playing Crash Bandicoot a bunch on. I've been playing that on an Ambernic RG351. That's been weird because I know I like the second one and certainly parts of the third one, and I sort of played quite a bit of the first one, but not as much. And I don't know whether it's because I'm playing it on a handheld screen that's making this worse, but it just seems like there's an awful lot of really shitty bits with sort of the perspective and trying to judge jumps and things like that. It's very frustrating. but for some reason, I keep plugging away at it. So we'll see. Maybe I'll finish that out at some point. And in terms of also finishing stuff out, I watched Castlevania Season 4 on Netflix, and that was very enjoyable. Still continues to be a series that sort of had no right being as good as it was, I think. There's certainly a fight near the end that would make a really good boss fight in a sort of a 3D Castlevania. Really good fun. Interested to see what they do next, because they're now they're stopping that sort of timeline, and they've said they're going to go on to a sort of a spin-off timeline. But as long as they keep the same sort of quality of writing and stuff, I think that'll be pretty good. So yeah, that's about it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, for me, I have been digging around, trying to do a little spring cleaning. Might be a little late. Still trying to get some comics moving and stuff like that. And I feel like I have cords all over my life, just like messes of cords, piles of cords. I'm always looking for some kind of new damn cord to plug something in. I was talking to the fellows earlier about doing some live casting with PowerPoints for a thing for my job later this week, and I needed an HDMI micro to HDMI, which I don't know why I didn't have one of those, so I had to order that. And I was digging through all these damn cords and coming across some extra pies and stuff I'd kind of forgotten about that were in the back of a closet. So fired it up this month and was playing some G.I. Joe Arcade and also Jackal on the NES, which I don't know, I just had a lot of fun kind of go back to some of those, easier times, simpler, sort of mindless blow 'em up games. And then fired up the Switch just to kind of see what was currently on the online Switch library. They released a Super Famicom game called Psycho Dream. I'm not sure. Dave, you ever played that one? It seems like something maybe you would have played.
No, not one I've heard of.
It's a side scroller. You can play as one of two characters. The guy is sort of a swordsman, and the girl character has a whip. It's not very good. I don't really recommend it. I don't know. Been playing some Cyberpunk. I think I'm getting to the end of that game. I've kind of enjoyed it a little bit more than last month when I was talking about it. I don't know, maybe it's grown on me a little bit. Still underwhelmed compared to the Witcher series that, CD Projekt Red came out with. I don't know, it's horrible. I think maybe the thing I like is just I find, I'm quite busy right now. In the structure of the missions, it is kind of that GTA formula. So you can kind of pick it up and play a small mission and not like totally forget what you're doing. If you have like 10 minutes between cooking dinner or something and you just want to fire it up and do a short little robbery mission or something, you can kind of do that. So enjoyed that. Digging around on the Craigslist, saw that somebody local is selling Vindicators, the Atari game, for $200. And it looks like it's working. I've emailed the fella twice. Not sure if he's going to get back to me or not, but it has tank controls, 2-player game. I don't know. I think that's a good deal. $200 for working arcade game. So there's a story I sent in later that we'll talk about. It kind of ties in with that. As far as the whiskey front, was able to pick up the old Fitzgerald 8, which is bottled 9 of 10 of that series, of the decanter series. So kind of glad that I'll be closing in on completing that series pretty soon. And I'm just trying to thin out the collection at this point. I've got far too much. And, I think that kind of happens with any collection. You kind of get to this point where you're like, what the hell am I doing with all this stuff?
Drink it.
Yeah. Been doing a lot of bike riding, just kind of enjoying the nice weather. As far as what I've been watching, we started a series called Mosquito Cove. That's on Apple TV. That's really good, man. It's kind of like a cartel family thriller, with like an NGO or something. And I just think, there's definitely some plot holes and stuff like that, but definitely it's one of those shows where every episode kind of leaves you on the edge of your seat. Don't have a whole lot of time for, just binging shows right now, so it's nice. It comes out every Friday. If you're looking for something good, I recommend that. Mosquito Cove on Apple TV. And I'm hiring somebody at work, which has just been, I could write a damn book on how crazy this whole adventure is. And I'm just kind of astonished how much people are asking for fresh out of school with no experience. And, some of these people that I've interviewed just saying, like, well, I don't really feel like coming into the office. Do you think I'll ever have to come in? And I don't really like working Fridays. And, is wholesale absenteeism cool? And yeah, it's crazy, man. It's I'm getting to that point where I'm definitely more seasoned. Got quite a bit of experience, and some of these young guys coming up and gals, it's just kind of incredible. I think they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. But yeah, it's definitely been an adventure. So there you go. That's me.
All right. Time
Kids
to
these days, they need to pull up their bootstraps.
Yeah.
I know. I finally got to that point where I'm like the get off my lawn type guy. I'm like, so what do you mean you don't like working Fridays? Like, another guy asked me within 5 minutes to interview him, how long until I can get your job? It's like, yeah, delete his resume.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing wrong with a bit of ambition.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, let's get into some news then. And I sent one in here about a remake of a classic pin called Fathom. And I have played Fathom. I do like it. It's a fairly simple game. It's fairly old. I can't remember who did the original now off the top of my head. But I do like it. And this one looks a pretty faithful remake of it. Obviously, it's a lot newer and brighter with LEDs rather than bulbs and what have you. And so that is it Stern that's doing it? No, it's Melbourne-based Haggis Pinball. And it's their second title. So if you're a fan of Fathom, might be one for you to pick up.
I sent one in that appears to be a dead link now, and I'm trying to find some stuff about it. I noticed that the first result I got back is from Pat the NES Punk on YouTube, which is then titled Castlevania Resurrection Dreamcast Prototype Controversy. So there may be some more news to this that I didn't notice, but when I sent it in, just missed last month's news. It was that the cancelled Dreamcast Castlevania 3D game, a prototype that seemed to be like an E3 build kind of setup, had turned up online, and then people had made it available, and it was kind of just about playable, and yeah, it was supposedly interesting to check out, but there may be more to investigate into that further, so I may do that.
Well, when people get single, they sometimes they start selling some of their things and moving on in life. And we got a story that was sent in here by a couple folks, Dave included, that the Queen's Golden Wii is now up for sale, priced at $300,000 on eBay of all places, which is quite bizarre. Do you think she listed it herself?
I don't. I did read this article when it came in, and they can't even confirm that she actually received it. They sent it to her, so it was done by THQ, who were looking for some publicity for one of their games. So it was a bit of a PR stunt. They had a golden Wii made and sent it off to the Queen, but they couldn't confirm that she actually received it. So I'm not sure who is selling it.
Come on, she was playing that bowling game.
Yeah,
she was
definitely.
all in.
Maybe some
I
Resident
don't know.
Evil
I think
4.
she was, yeah, more of a Mad World person.
She was pissed there wasn't enough M-rated games on it.
Yeah.
Philip didn't like the lack of Nazi sympathising. It was all about killing Nazis. Yeah.
Oh, the sender of this message has to be notified when you read it. Well, I'm not going to do that. Basically, because they want to sell me something. One from random here. The Sexy George Lutz Challenge. Can he find a dogging mod for Euro Truck Simulator? So, it sounds obvious, random. What inspired you to send that?
I don't know. I just thought of it. And this is incidentally before I ended up with going into VR and being able to play Truck Simulator in VR. Previously, I just had to play it on a monitor and just sit back and chuck a podcast on and chill out and drive the open road. But I don't know. I was just out and about, and I thought, you know what, George Lutz needs a challenge. I wonder if he can find some dogging content for truck driver.
So is this like? Do you drive like an 18-wheeler? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have some friends that are truck drivers here, and when they stop at some of these rest stations and stuff, the slang for sort of the prostitutes that hang out there is lot lizards. So I don't know. Do you have some equivalent in Europe?
Yeah,
they just go prostitutes.
I was gonna say, yeah. Mike's the trucker. Yeah, as far as I knew, they were just standard truck stop prostitutes.
Yeah, we didn't really have a name for them, but yeah, you did get them. But then you'd get some who'd come around as well, and they'd be like, you'd think, oh, she's like looks like a high quality truck stop prostitute, but then they'd actually be trying to sell you insurance, health insurance and shit. So you get them in the cabin, then they go out on with the sales pitch, and you'd be like, "Fuck off."
Was there much of a dogging scene when you were a trucker, or had that not really?
Yeah, there was.
You were like really interested in this.
Oh yeah,
it's one of his favourite hobbies. Yeah, there was down on the A14 before they made it. They like widened it all and got rid of some of the laybys, so it was faster and safer. But the A14 in particular,
the A14 cannot be classified as faster.
Well, I guess parts of it are. But yeah, there's laybys along there. There's a guy I used to work with, and he used to go to Felixstowe to pick up containers from the docks. And he'd leave on a Sunday night just to go into one of these laybys and pick someone up or watch some dogging or whatever. He was filthy. So, yeah, it's been going on a while.
So, yeah, there you go. It doesn't have to be George Lutz. Anyone, yeah. If you come across any
any dogging news,
yeah.
We should have a jingle for dogging news.
Not been much around for a while.
We could probably have our own segment on that.
And now that we've got COVID out the way, and everyone can start to hug with more free abandon.
Oh, it's dogging heaven.
I think this one came in earlier in the month, and I sent this in. So Stern announced a new pinball machine this month, inspired by The Mandalorian. So, this show's been very popular. I think the Baby Yoda, and his name's slipping my mind right now. Have you guys watched The Mandalorian?
No. Yes.
Gogu or something?
Grogu
or something?
Grogu? Yeah, something like that.
Grogu, that's it, yeah. I mean, I think he's been wildly popular with all the kids and even the adults. Like, he's pretty cute looking. The toys, people dressing their kids up for Halloween and stuff is Grogu, and I think the series has been pretty good, and there's sort of been a underground appreciation for the bounty hunter stuff for a long time. I think this Mandalorian series was well done and just kind of catapulted the bounty hunters into the stratosphere. And of course, Stern is hopping on that train. So, just like standard Stern stuff, there'll be three different versions of it. The pro model, which is, I don't know, like 6,000, the premium, which is almost 8,000, and then the limited edition, which instantly sold out for like $10,000. And I got some friends in the whole pinball, that are pretty heavy into the pinball scene, if you will. And when this thing went live, my buddy called me up and he's like, man, it's going to sell out immediately. You got to get yours. You got to get your like limited edition, blah, blah, blah. I got mine. And, he's like specking on it. Like, hey, I'm throwing down my $10,000 because this will be worth even more in the future. And it's like, man, I see that with so much stuff right now where, like on the comic book front, like I'm trying to get rid of some of this massive collection that I inherited, and the old Star Wars comic books with bounty hunters and stuff, like their prices are jumping. Anything Star Wars I think is always collectible, but I just never thought that somebody would be like specking on a $10,000 Star Wars pinball, just buying it because you think it's going to be worth double that in a decade from now. I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't know. I've not really looked at what the market's like for all the newer pinball releases, and what happens to them in the sort of the used market afterwards, or whether people do actually end up sort of parting with them, or is it that the people who are buying them are keeping hold of them? So then I guess if they're doing that, because they really wanted it and they want to put it in their collection, if there are only a few of them then getting released back into the wild, then maybe they do end up fairly valuable. And obviously with such a big property attached to it, well, maybe it will. But like you say, yeah, sort of 10 grand, like on a chance that you may get some amount of return on it, seems a bit sort of risky, perhaps. I was thinking about Mike's profits on his fruit machine earlier. I hope he has remembered to empty the coin box and he didn't leave like 200 quid's worth of 10p's in there.
I did remember to empty it because I used to use it basically as a piggy bank anyway. So there was about 40 odd 50 quid in there, I think, when I emptied it. So I've got all those 10p's upstairs in a tub and 5p's. So yeah, I did empty it. But I think new pins are basically nowadays mostly being made for collectors. I bet the percentage of those that go out, to venues and things is relatively small. Most of these are going into private collections and people are going to hang on to them. Maybe they get bored of it, they sell it for not much less than they paid, and they buy another brand new one that they really want. So it's a collector's market, I think. So those prices are that high because people are paying it. And, we've seen the resurgence of pinball for, God, what is it? Over 10 years? What year was Wizard of Oz? I would count that as one of the early games in kind of the resurge of pinball, the recent resurge. And it's been happening every year since, at least a couple of games a year coming out. So it's a viable market for them. So people are paying those prices.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get hands on the Led Zeppelin pinball soon. I'm looking forward to playing that one.
Yeah, but the music pins are probably my favorite of the newer ones, certainly.
Yeah, I just hey, $10,000 is a lot of money. Even if you got disposable income, I still think that to plunk down $10,000 on a pinball, it's definitely investment.
Yeah, you have to wonder at what point could you have bought a pretty decent 3D printer and then actually, built your own, significantly like designed and built your own, or even just cloned one that exists for that kind of money. I mean, I guess there's going to be people that don't want to put that sort of engineering effort into it, but yeah, it's.
I would think most people aren't going to engineer their own pinballs. Random.
That's probably the majority of people.
Yeah, probably.
Well, one thing you can do if you've got an old Commodore 64 knocking about is mine some Bitcoin. So, this guy here, and it says here in the article that it's more of, the fact that he could rather than he should, because I'm not sure how quickly a Commodore 64 is going to mine anything. But as a proof of concepts, it does work, and the good old classic C64 will mine some Bitcoin over a very long period of time for you.
That's
So I think it said it was like a billion years to to do anything. It's an odd one because it's quite well. It's not as memory as intensive as Ethereum is, but yeah, you'd think it would be a bit of a struggle for a C64. Other than it just being an interface to an ASIC or something. But yeah, if you can do it. It's an interesting engineering challenge again, I suppose.
Yeah.
I saw west of Birmingham in West Midlands. It was like 2 days ago. It came on my news feed that the police there, the British police, busted a storage unit they thought was an illegal cannabis operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and they went in there, thinking it was, they had this big heat signature and all this stuff, and they opened it up, and it was, they were ripping off electricity somehow, and they were running this illegal Bitcoin operation. And I think they're, the perps are still at large. They're trying to track them down, but they were basically just running tons of Bitcoin mining. I didn't see any C64s in the picture, but
No, I mean, if the picture, I didn't look into it much, but I did there was a picture sort of associated with it, and if that was not just a stock photo, it was an actual picture from inside. Yeah, it was all like ASIC miner boxes,
or with their own vent going into big chimneys going out the building.
Yeah.
So, back to pinball. Pinball Expo 2021 is back October 27th to the 30th in a new location, and they say with more retro video gaming than ever before. So if you want to catch up with Galloping Ghost Arcade Tournament, or meet Walter Day, or do a ton of other stuff in the vendor zone, then Pinball Expo is the place for you. I'm just trying to find the location. It doesn't say on this link. Let me click to the site and see if I can figure out where it is, if it ever loads. Here we go. The Renaissance Schaumburg Convention Center Hotel in Schaumburg, Illinois. So get yourself down there. How far a drive is that for you, Sparkle?
That's right outside of Chicago, so that's a serious trip.
You don't want to fly because you might get beaten up in the airport or on the plane.
Nah, probably 10, 12 hours, something like that.
Wow.
By car. Yeah, it's far.
It's far.
It's far. Something else that's a little bit far off. I sent this in, and also David, he's put a pronunciation guide for his name, which is Guy Rick. Which is good. Is Flashback sequel that's going to be made, which was announced by Microid's Twitter. There's not much information other than it will launch in 2022 on consoles and PC. There's plenty of time for that to slip, seeing as there's not a lot of information at the moment other than a logo. But with some luck, we should have a direct sequel to Flashback. David says that Flashback for the Genesis was one of his favourite games, and the recent re-release was also good. Hopefully this will turn out well, but at the very least it will surely be better than Fade to Black. Which, Michael, you're more familiar with Fade to Black than I am, I think.
Yeah, Flashback was a great game. Really loved that. Played it on the Amiga, but it was on all the consoles as well. Wonderful game. I hope they do the sequel justice. Fade to Black was a very early PlayStation game, PlayStation 1, and it was kind of 3D over-the-shoulder view, and it was quite janky. Even at the time, it was quite janky, but I did play through it. I can't remember if I got all the way through. I think I completed it years ago, but yeah, not a great-looking game. As Scott would say if he was here, 3D before 3D was ready.
And that's why, Flashback still looks pretty decent today.
Yeah, it does. The movement on the character is amazing. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, you can... The graphic style and everything else, I mean, this would lend itself well to a reboot. I don't think they have to do much to, make a great game here. I mean, it's all right there. It still holds up. It's a great game.
It is.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll do, with the name escapes me now, but the chair-developed Unreal Engine game that was like a Metroidvania, that was, it was all sort of on a 2D plane, but except that you could shoot into the background at some enemies and things, but it was, essentially 2D, but it was all, done in 3D, and they did do that quite well. Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's been a number of things that have happened sort of, the last few years. There's, we have had pixel art making a bit of resurgence, and especially sort of that bridge of 8 and 16-bit style. But then we've also had like nice vector drawn sort of 2D artwork as well. So hopefully, I mean, they could do it all right as a 3D generated game on a 2D plane, but there's still other opportunities as well for 2D stuff these days. So yeah, be interesting to see which way they go.
Yeah, I think when you kind of figured things out in Flashback, it kind of had that charm and gave you that satisfaction that is missing in some games now, where it just seems very expected of what you're supposed to do, or sort of rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So one here sent in by me, and it is an article on the Chive about some rare and collectible Lego sets. I was a big fan of Lego years ago, and it was fun. And there's some, you can scroll through these yourselves and take a look at these, but obviously there's a Star Wars one, which is going for a fairly hefty price, over $2,000 in dollars, $2,300 for the Ultimate Collector's Series Imperial Star Destroyer. And that's a decent sized set as well. It's shown on a table in front of a couch, and it's as big as the couch, like a 2-seater couch. So there's a Millennium Falcon there as well, $15,000. So if you want to buy a bunch of plastic, there's a way to burn through a lot of cash.
I popped through the mall real quick. I popped through the mall maybe a week ago, and they have a Lego store there. And I was walking by, and usually it's they have some cool stuff on display, but I don't usually stop. But man, they have the Shuttle Discovery there right now, which is their new set. It looks like I almost bought it. I'm like, man, this is really badass. and the top opens and everything else. I think it's like $200. My little one's into Legos. That might be like a holiday or birthday purchase coming up.
Yeah. So one here from Scott, and he called it Ways to Make Scott Go Broke. And there's a couple of links here. One, he talked about in the Hardware Flashback, which was the Ecto 1, the Ghostbusters 8th scale model kit. So you've probably heard that already. The other is an Optimus Prime, and because I clicked on I was in the UK, it's gone off and shown me something else.
Yeah, I got that. But I do know about the product from other Transformers collectors that have mentioned it, and it's a motorized Optimus Prime. If I put a link into YouTube for you. Actually, no, it's not going to let me do that probably. So I'll put it into Guy. And now, I've broken the link. But yeah, it's an automatically transforming Optimus Prime, which is very expensive, and it uses an app to sort of control it, because you can then sort of make it walk and I think drive around using this app. And do sort of all sorts of bits and pieces. And yeah, it's been an interesting one, because I've heard some people, obviously Scott has said, it's a good way to make him go broke. I mean, it does look pretty fucking cool when it sort of all folds in on itself back to a truck. But then I've heard some collectors saying that it sort of defeats the point. The whole point is that they want to be, doing that transformation by hand.
Yeah.
And in the pictures it looks plastic as well, which I think a lot of them are buying expensive die-cast metal models these days, and really going sort of all in on that. But it's 19 inches tall, and has over
$700
components, so it's pretty big. That's what, foot and a half. It's pretty decent sized thing. So yeah, I think it's quite cool, but not for me. 700 quid cool.
No.
But Scott's got plenty of money to throw around on shit.
Yeah, it's better if you watch the YouTube, because you can watch it kind of move around and stuff. You could it's voice activated. You could say roll out and it turns into the truck and drives away, and you can control it from your phone. I mean, it is pretty sweet. Like the points of articulation, it kind of moves around. I mean, obviously like these sort of little sizzle commercial videos for it always sell it a bit more. I think we need to do some UK math and figure out how many of these Scott would actually have to buy. I mean, it's $700, but like, how many would he really have to buy to go broke? I think it would be all of them,
I don't think even UK math could calculate that.
Yeah. Would he trade his Ferrari in to do it? Because he can't be truly broke unless he's got no assets, left. So surely he'd have to sell the Ferrari to buy another 10 or so.
Yeah, I think Scott should build like a real 1-to-1 size of this thing. Like that would be badass.
Yeah. So one here from Gareth Hamer, who I thought was going to join us tonight, but doesn't seem to have done, which is quite rude. And he says, lockdown certainly helped with completing a load. And it did. Lots of people have completed lots of things, but this one in particular, over a course of 20 years, a Nintendo fan has completed their Famicom game collection. So, does it say how much they've spent or how many there are? The last game that she bought was Snow Brothers from 1990, and she paid 72,500 yen, which works out to about $665. She spent 2,300 nearly on Battle Rush, and there's probably lots that cost her a lot more than that. So she's got a complete Famicom collection. It doesn't say here how many there are. in the Famicom library, and I'm not sure personally. There's about 1,000 NES games, isn't there? Something like that.
Pass. I did have a spreadsheet of all the official stuff.
Do
at
the
some point.
Famicom, do any of those like old chip games, like they don't go bad, right? You could just kind of scrub them up, the connectors, and they're fine.
Up to now, I think you should be fine. I think there will be a point at which they probably stop working, but I think that's a few years away yet. Did any of the NES games have batteries in? Because
Sure.
I know,
Some
the
did.
Game Boy games did, and some of those batteries have gone bad and leaked and killed the board. So that might be something to look out for if a game's got a battery in there. But up to now, I think they've been pretty
who would
solid.
know about the longevity of ROMs for cartridges, don't you?
How long will it last? Our series in the hardware flashback. We'll have to ping Scott
Well,
an
no, I was
email.
going to say SOCOM
Oh,
Mike has done the research on
50 years.
how long mask ROMs versus EEPROMs, you know.
Well, the thing that's interesting is, like every month on that Heritage auctions, you see these games that sell for insane amounts of money. And those early Zelda games, like those had a battery in them. So and they're sealed, like a sealed copy of Legend of Zelda. I mean, there's a battery in there. Could that actually be destroyed inside of that case because that battery's going to explode at some point?
It could be, yeah. If that battery explodes, it's going to leak its acid all over there. Definitely.
Be some shit. You spent 200 grand on that.
Yeah. Sell it for a $5.
Yeah, never buy a sealed original Xbox for collecting and leaving on a shelf, or a PSP, because they are all now. The PSPs, the batteries are swelling. I don't think there's going to be actually any damage that it would do, apart from it sort of pops the battery cover off. If you impact it while it's swollen, there's more chance of it exploding then. But the Xboxes, the batteries leaking all over the clock batteries are leaking all over or is it the clock capacitor? But yeah, they're all. I need to do mine at some point. But yeah, they're leaking onto boards and dissolving the traces and killing Xboxes.
We had an Android tablet at work, and we bought it just for multi-factor authentication for personnel. They use a website, and it pings them a code to an app, and they have to put that code in the website. But they didn't have a smartphone, so I just bought them a cheap Android tablet. We've had it maybe 4 years, something like that. And the battery in that started swelling, and it swelled so much that it pushed apart the screen and the back of the tablet. It just literally blew itself apart.
Well, speaking of Xbox, we got one here that there's a neat little Easter egg for the original Xbox that had been revealed via Kotaku 20 years after Microsoft console's first launch. So there's a small hidden secret in the static credit scenes that is a nod to the Xbox staff that worked on it. And they went ahead and contacted the developers, and these guys actually thought, like, hey, enough time had passed that no one was going to actually discover it at this point, which is kind of cool. Like, I respect the fact that they're willing to take it to the grave with them, type thing. Like they hadn't, like I would think after some time you'd be like, all right, hey guys, we hid something here, like I don't know that I could keep a secret for 2 decades. Like, maybe, but would you feel the need to leak it?
I mean,
it depends what the consequences of revealing it were. Like, if you still work for Microsoft and you put an Easter egg in an official Microsoft product, then they might not be too pleased if it came out. So maybe the guys that did it still work there. I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe they left it there and wanted, they wanted the sort of the satisfaction of seeing how long it would take for someone to find it, and then with it coming around to the sort of the 20-year Xbox anniversary celebration stuff, but other people that knew about it were like, yeah, let's, this is a good time to sort of generate some news cycle, as part of our PR program for the 20th anniversary. This is one of the things we can put out. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it could be like Mike says, like, yeah, I don't know how strict they are with, you putting in things that, shouldn't be there and haven't been vetted and looked at. Because obviously there's potential, security vulnerabilities and holes that you could be leaving in and things like that. But
I mean, once it reached end of life, it's not that critical. But while the product was their, current gen console, then maybe you'd be shitting yourself a bit if it did come out or if it did break something. If Microsoft release a brand new game and it won't play because of this thing in the menu or something.
Yeah. The Seamus Blackley, one of the co-creators of the original OG Xbox, also teased that there's still something hidden on the console's boot animation. It would be, quote, obvious when uncovered. So you wonder if did any of these guys have the foresight to say, like, hey, let's hide something, we can use this 20 years from now? Like, that would be masterful.
I don't think they'd have done it with the intention of using it in 20 years. I think it's more of a like, yeah, we'll do it to see if it does come out, and then maybe we'll tell people about it at some point. And no one had decided when was a good time.
Was Seamus Blackley working on the retro VGS?
Not that I know of.
No.
Maybe he was being courted for it.
Probably. Maybe he's one of the 250 plus developers.
Probably.
It was one of the people who, his email sent an out of office reply, which to SoCal was like, yeah, he's interested. He's replied back.
Yeah. Well, if you want to read a retro gaming magazine, don't go to Retro Magazine. Go to Old School Gamer Magazine and subscribe for free. Yeah, as I said, subscribe for free. So you get the first 24 pages of every issue totally free by going to oldschoolgamer.com/RGR and signing up. Or even better, for only $10 a year, you can get access to the full issue, every issue, plus all back issues digitally by signing up at oldschoolgamer.com/RGR. If you're in North America, you can also get the printed magazine for as little as $30 a year. International subscribers don't have to miss out, but they do have to pay a bit more to cover shipping. But if you're interested, that URL again for you. Everybody say it all at once, oldschoolgamer.com/RGR, and be sure to tell them that Retro Gaming Roundup sent you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I've got one here sent in by friend of the show, Per Holstrom, and he says that fellow Swede Mattis Lind has acquired scans of the Space War source code from Bill Saylor from the PDP-11 from 1974 and converted it to code and gives instructions on how to build the code yourself. Now all you have to do is get a hold of a PDP-11 and a vector display, or perhaps an analog oscilloscope. He has seen a video of it running, but there is no video linked to the project's GitHub page. But he gives a link to that GitHub page, and so if anyone, I guess this would be something. Are there? Do we know if there's any FPGA cores that would do a PDP-11, or is there too much analog circuitry on it? Do you think?
I know you can get kind of a modern remake of a PDP-8, so possibly a PDP-11. If you watch the Security Now podcast on Twit, the Twit network, then the guy who does that, Steve Gibson, has a bunch on his shelf behind him, all flashing away, doing various things, and they are kind of the modern remake of the PDP-8. So I guess there would be an 11 out there somewhere.
Yeah. So there you go, Per. Get back to us and find out if we've got a an FPGA solution that can do that.
And hopefully Per's got his book by now, because I sent it out to him and Swedish Customs held onto it for a couple of weeks and then sent it back and said, nah.
Swedish Customs read it and went, this is nonsense, mate.
Yeah. We don't want this in our country. So I've sent it back to him again, and he does live about 3 miles out of nowhere. So at some point, somebody with a reindeer and a sleigh will be making it up his drive with his book, hopefully.
I remember there were some parts that I had to send to Russia when I used to work in the steel factory, and no word of a lie, it took about 3 years to get these parts to Russia, because we'd send them and they'd just send them back again every time, and it was just complete nonsense. So these things had gone, effectively around the world 3 times, just trying to get them to Russia. And it was nuts. So I think we ended up sending them into like the Czech Republic, and then from there, like someone in a van skipped them across a border or something.
What was the point? Like, why were they sending them back? Were they just like, meh, too lazy to take them there? We'll just send them back.
I think they were parts used in bomb casings. And so then there was always this, even though like we had authorization from customs to export them, they didn't want to allow the company that was, the importer, they didn't want to allow them to have them in or something. And there was just, a lot of political bullshit back and forth.
Pesky people didn't want bomb parts in their country. Jeez.
Oh, get a grip. Get a grip, Russians.
When we go to the beach, like my kids always want to get like those henna tattoos and stuff like that, right?
Mm.
And I was talking to the girl last summer that was doing the henna, and like they're always like these young girls from Russia and stuff, and you're making small talk because they're sitting there diddling away, and you're like, hey, I noticed the accent. Where are you from? And this girl was like, oh, I was from Siberia. And I'm like, wow. She's like, oh yeah, it took 24 hours by train to like get anywhere.
Yeah.
She's like, it's so incredible here at the beach. And I was like, I bet. That sounds awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Something else that sounds awful is a new app coming to the Nintendo Switch priced at £8. And it is a calculator. A frigging calculator for the Switch for £8. And the article here is on, I think it's Eurogamer. Yeah, it is Eurogamer. And they start off the article with, Nintendo Switch doesn't have Netflix, but it will soon have a calculator app. I can't believe it still hasn't got Netflix on there. I really can't.
I don't get it. Especially as they put it on the Wii and the Wii U.
Yeah. You could get YouTube on the Wii as well.
Look, someone's going to buy it.
I was going to say, is there a DRM issue with the hardware can't support the DRM required or something? But that can't be it, because it's a NVIDIA Shield that the hardware. OS-wise, I guess you've got to put in something for it. But then if the OS for the Wii has theoretically enough DRM for, I suppose that was only standard def though. And if you run like Netflix on an Android device without the DRM libraries, then it just limits you to 480p. So that would always work there. But I don't know.
Look,
what
people are going to buy this stupid calculator. They will ante up the money. Like, nothing surprises me anymore. And I think UK, you could probably confirm this. At least here in America, every year there's like some fad, right? And a couple years ago it was fidget spinners. When I was younger, it was like slap bracelets and stuff like that. You know what the biggest thing is right now?
Go on.
Pokemon cards.
No. fucking autism toys. Like, they're toys for kids with autism. They're like bubble poppers and like these little like fidgety things for people that are on the spectrum to kind of keep their hands busy and occupied. And like you go to like an elementary school here and there's just like every kid is playing with these like autism toys now. They're huge. Like,
yeah, I saw a link the other day for a bracelet that has like a zipper, an endless zipper that goes around it, and you can just sit there moving this zip around your wrist. And I bought one a few years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, which was a fidget cube. And I think it might have come from Kickstarter. And like one side it has an on-off switch. The other side it has like a 5 little buttons like laid out like they would be on a dice, and you can press each button. Another side is like, you know, some other switch, a toggle switch that you mess with. I gave it to one of my kids because she's not autistic or anything, but she's hyperactive. She never sits still anywhere. She's always doing something. And she saw me just messing around with this thing one day. Said, "Oh, what's that? Can I have a look?" And she ended up taking it home with her.
yeah.
I'm a bit like that. I could do.
But
I could probably done with stuff like this.
Yeah.
Every shop I go into, there's like they have like a display of these like bubble poppers and like fake bike chains and stuff like that. And like you see little kids walking around in grocery stores and they're all playing with autism toys now, and I'm just like, the hell is going on here? So $8 calculator, I don't know. I mean, people are paying $12 for some piece of crap out of plastic that probably cost 10 cents to make. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
No, me neither. So, one here from Scott, and I'll try and figure out what it is. I only know what it is, I don't know what it does. He called this one Mouse Device. So this is a product called Mouster, Modern Mouse Adapter for Retro Computers. So that is what it is. The Mouster is a device that allows connecting any USB, not PS2, type mouse to as many as old computers as possible. So I'm guessing it will support, you know, your infrared mice and things like that for. The list here, Commodore 64, 128, the Atari ST, a Falcon, the Atari range, Atari 5200, Amigas. So we know Scott loves to mess around with old computers, and now he can plug his modern day mouse into it.
That's kind of funky. Because I ended up with quite a good mouse for my Atari ST. It just, I don't know where it came from. It just came with it. But then my Amiga mouse, it's just the original ball mouse that came with the Amiga 500s, and they're pretty fucking terrible.
Yeah.
They were pretty terrible at the time. So yeah, if there was an easy way to just use an old Intel mouse that's lying around or something like that, that would be pretty spiffy. Let alone if it supports, I don't know whether it'd get enough power, but if it could support like a 2.5 gigahertz dongle for a wireless mouse or something, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, one of the best mice I ever had was an old Microsoft mouse, 2 buttons and a scroll wheel, but it had a ball in it, so that's why it got relegated. But I can't remember what the actual name of it was, but it wasn't like it's symmetrical. It was molded round in a slight curve, so it fitted into your palm really well.
Was that not the Intel mouse? Was that when they first did the scroll wheel and the not, the non what's the word I'm thinking of for the non-symmetrical, asymmetrical? That's it.
Just Google an Intel mouse. This doesn't look like it. No, let me talk amongst yourselves while I Google Microsoft mouse.
I shall carry on with one from Chris, and this is Billy Mitchell and Todd Rogers suing everyone. So more news on the Billy Mitchell and lawsuit stuff. We've got just a ton of lawsuits these two are throwing at people over video game high scores. There have actually been a suicide attributed to the results for settlement someone had with Mitchell. remember when we just played games for fun? So this links to a YouTube video, and I don't know whether there's I haven't seen any mainstream sort of stuff on even more things going on, but this is a video that was been made in the last couple of days ago. It was posted.
Yeah, I did watch that video the other day. It's definitely worth a watch. It goes into Todd Rogers, who's his lawsuit actually says that he filed has his name as Todd Todgers, so for the rest of the video they call him Todd Todgers. And but it does have a sad side to it, because there was a YouTuber, and I forget his name now, who criticised Billy well, not criticised Billy Mitchell, but kind of exposed him for proving that some of his videos were fake. Mitchell sued him, but this guy was down on his luck at the time, didn't have the money to fight it, just settled just to make it go away because he was having real problems. But he later committed suicide. So, bit of a sad point in the video, but it's definitely worth a watch. He's suing, Twin Galaxies. He's suing some YouTubers for $1 million. He's just basically suing everyone. But Twin Galaxies, by the look of it, are not giving up. They are going to fight it, and we shall see what happens. Hopefully it gets in a courtroom, and then the whole fucking thing will go away, because I'm sick of it.
What's Todd Rogers suing for, though? I don't see where that's apparently clear.
Well, he is suing for defamation, because some people have said that his score, particularly his dragster score, is fake, because that was the one that he went over to Ben Heck's place, and they looked into the code and made it run kind of one step at a time, and proved that the time that Rogers had a 5.51 was impossible, because the code just wouldn't let you do it. And so he's just, I don't know. I think they both just seem to be angry men. I don't know. I mean, it's fucking video game high scores. What? Deal with it. Jesus Christ.
You better watch out that somebody doesn't send explosive package to your home now.
Yeah. Or white powder like Rand Paul. So I put a link in Skype to... That's the shape of the mouse that I used to have, but the one I had was USB and had a scroll wheel.
Oh, okay. So I think I've still got one of those I've got a storage box in the shed, which has got loads of ISA and PCI sound cards and loads of other shit that for some reason I held on to and absolutely fuck all use to anyone anymore. Yeah. Well, certainly to me, because all of the computers that I used to have, because I needed to keep SCSI computers that would take SCSI cards to run my nice big old scanner film, that would do 10:8 transparencies and all sorts of shit. That all finally died, so I got rid of it. But I've still got this box of stuff, and I've got a mouse. Yeah, it's like that, and it's really glossy,
right?
Which you don't really seem to get. Obviously mice now are kind of the slightly textured plastic, and this was just really glossy. And the buttons, there was a shape on the buttons that would just sort of, you'd get brown gunk just sort of collecting in it over time.
Isn't that a
really cool mouse?
Called a Peyronie's mouse or something?
I don't know.
Curved mouse?
I don't know.
Could be.
Oh god. So I've just found a page actually. So that's that one that you sent is called the Mouse 2.0.
Right.
But there was also one that was just a square, well, not quite square, but square, straighter version of it. And I remember having that as well, or at least using it a lot, maybe at my dad's office when I used to go and use Photoshop in his office at weekends. And that was a piece of shit, though. It wasn't very comfortable at all. It's kind of like the equivalent of holding a Master System controller versus holding a Mega Drive controller. One they've put a bit of effort into thinking about how this fits in your hand, and one's just a block that has some buttons on it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, old mice.
Old mice. So one here about old games, the rarest and most valuable Sega Game Gear games. So just a quick scroll down the list. It's an article on Racket Boy, who always do good stuff. And just I'll point out a few, and you can read the list at your leisure. So Mega Man goes for $250 to $1,000. Can't pass by Dizzy without mentioning him. Fantastic Dizzy can go for as much as $900. Let's find some bigger ones, if there are any bigger ones down here. There were, because I scrolled through this the other day. So, Power Drive.
$100 for Dizzy.
Yeah, worth every penny. Power Drive can go for $800 to $5,000.
Which one? Which version does it say?
The Power Drive games for Arcade Star, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be the NTSC, I would imagine.
Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, we don't really see many copies of Game Gear ports in the wild. The console counterparts of the game on the Mega Drive and Nintendo still PAL exclusives are much more common. So, yes. Yeah, there's some interesting ones there, and some you would never think would be worth more than $5 bob, but they are.
Yeah, like Mortal Kombat 3, you would think that, Mortal Kombat, that was everywhere, right? They just made tons of them, but this was a port, and apparently only got released in certain territories, therefore it was rare. It's kind of surprising, but one that I sent in that kind of ties into this is an article about how the price of games is going up so much. And this is on, this article is basically talking about now's a great time to sort of unload your vintage games, because the price of everything is going up so much. And I wonder if that is, you could go on to read the article, and it's like, the percentage increase over COVID and, all these different things. But how much of this is just sort of the natural progression of things going up in price as they get a little bit older? Is it, at least here, the U.S. is sort of printing money for everything. So, the price of everything's going up here. It's food, gasoline, stocks, comic books, whiskey, video game, like everything's going up quite rapidly. So is it inflationary pressures? Is it a mix of things? Is it more people kind of seeing the value of physical assets and collecting these things? What's your take on it?
Well, gas is thanks to Joe Biden. Cheers, Joe. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, over the time, these things are becoming rarer and rarer, so they're harder to get hold of, which will drive the price up. Simple supply and demand. But I don't know. Are more people becoming collectors? Are more people, like, I suppose people our age would tend to collect, Atari 2600 or something like that in television. So we're now in a stage where the generation behind us is going out buying up Game Gear games for their collection.
But they're kind of not really, like, in a way, it's like you have access to them, though. Like, it's easier now to play these old games than it ever has been before. And it's just getting easier and easier all the time, right? I mean, shoot, you don't even need to, like, be very smart to put together a MAME machine. And quite frankly, there's places like the Internet Archive where you don't even need a device. You just go on a website and play something now.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. You could Google Raspberry Pi, image, download it, install it, and be playing games in 15 minutes. But people want to own them, and video game players seem to be, a hobby that likes to hold on to the physical cards. Maybe SoCal was onto something. I guess the same. There must be the same kind of thing going on for DVD collectors or VHS collectors. Maybe some of those are reaching horrendous prices. It's just not come up on my radar. No.
DVDs are not like
No, I
they're
think
worthless.
that's because it's not so much of a nostalgia thing to being like. I mean, you get a couple, now and again you will get people sort of wanting to watch some old VHS tapes, but it's not. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, I must go back and enjoy Ghostbusters on VHS
Yeah, I guess.
because
You know,
it's not, it's just technically not, the experience is vastly inferior. Whereas you can argue that playing an actual NES on a CRT with actual controllers, off a cartridge is still possibly the best experience, no matter how good, Raspberry Pi emulation or FPGA, low latency stuff is. Because you've always got, oh well, there might be a bit of lag, or there's the controller's not quite what it should be, and
Well, does it come down to the fact then that the list that I've just read out, the Game Gear one, those are for like boxed and complete ones. So obviously they're becoming rarer. If you want to go out and pick up a Game Gear cartridge only, you could go into, your nearest thrift store and maybe pick a handful of them up for next to nothing. But if you want one
Yeah.
boxed with the manual, all the inserts, then you're going to have to pay for that because there can't be that many of those out there.
No, I mean that's certainly that's a genuine rarity thing. Is like if you are looking for box complete stuff, that gets harder and harder and harder as the collectors have got theirs, and then there's less available, and over time more and more people's boxes are just going to there's people are going to have floods and damp problems that are going to destroy them or lose them, and they will become rarer and rarer. But then you find that even just for cartridge only stuff for SNES, like things like there was a time where I was buying SNES games and you could just pick stuff up willy nilly, really cheap. Fiver would get you quite a lot of the big name games, and then whether it's a crossover and when a generation that grew up with that hardware becomes at the point where they have disposable income and they sort of then want to go back, pick up the games they missed out on originally, or want games that they just wanted to have them again to for the nostalgia, and whether we get that crossover point, things start going back up in price, because you see it at like expos where there was a very definite time that we all noticed that suddenly, like, everyone's going around and getting very nostalgic and excited about the PS2 and GameCube era, which previously had been pretty cheap, if at all, bothered for people to sell them.
I bought a GameCube from Game in a box for $5 with everything, all the cables.
That's the thing, is like there was a sweet spot for all of this stuff at one time where it wasn't so interesting, and then as well, I think as well as like retro gaming has become more mainstream. Just look at how many more expos there are in the UK. It went from maybe one or two as just a small community meetup to a couple of big organized organizations doing sort of actual corporate commercial sort of ventures out of it, and then big, and these they went from tiny little ballrooms in a small hotel or conference suite to then taking over the likes of Manchester, big proper event halls, which you're going to get thousands more people in, and therefore bring all of that extra people into the market. And then, well, and you've got the video game markets as well. They suddenly sprung up. It went from you'd go around and find things in a charity shop, or you'd pick off things on eBay. eBay started getting harder to get. Charity shops started to dry up, apart from FIFA, and everything suddenly turned into going around all the conventions, whether it be gaming conventions or anime conventions, there's sort of proper sellers now doing it who've got their web shops and then tour around with that. And now there's dedicated, sales conventions for it all.
I mean, I would argue that I feel the arcade experience is usually best on the original hardware. But the last time, just a few months ago, when I played through Legend of Zelda on the Switch, after I completed it, I think I had sort of a sea change moment where I was like, you know what? I kind of enjoyed this better because of the save states, and it was very well done on the Switch, and I could plug it into any TV in my house. I could take it on the go with me. In some ways, I felt like it was a superior experience, and I'm prepared for the hate mail, but I don't
definitely. I know what you're saying. So like Final Fantasy VI, which had been on my list for years. I then, I never ended up playing it. I got the Super Nintendo Mini, and I thought, oh yeah, maybe that's a good excuse to play it. Even then, with save states, I just didn't want to sit down in front of a TV to sort of play it and grind. I didn't have that much time to sort of sit and, I want to use the TV to watch something while I'm then grinding, in the background. So then, just playing it on a handheld emulator, with full like save state and a bit of rewind support as well. Just in case I'm not paying it full attention as I'm doing something and cock something up, I can just sort of rewind it, and giving those modern things into it, that made it so much easier to play. I could just pick it up, play it for 5 minutes while I'm having a shit, and then put it to sleep again, and it's there. I don't have to go, oh, right, yeah, okay, Sunday morning, I'm going to, put 2 hours into sort of grinding this and going to the next boss and getting through that sort of thing. So there's definitely times where, I think playing it, on like this, the Switch collection, online collections and stuff like that. Like you say, you can dock it to your TV, you can pick it up and go for a shit in the middle of the game. You've got multiple save state slots and stuff like that. I think for me, even with a bit of lag and with not always the most ideal controller, it's still a better way to play quite a lot of things as I've grown up and don't have as much time to just sit around doing nothing and occasionally going to school.
All right. I think we're out of news unless anyone else knows any better.
One more from Sparkle, which he sent in a Wired story, which I'd seen a headline for and not looked at, which is a story they did on CRT being the hot shit for gaming these days. Speaking of playing things on original hardware and original devices. Did you read the article, Sparkle?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Was it any? Was it? I was gonna say, was it? I haven't read it yet. Was it any good? I sort of skipped over it, thinking it might be just a sort of one of these sort of more mainstream. No, did you know that CRTs are actually pretty good? And people are buying up PVMs and BVMs and whatnot. Or was there a bit more to it?
No, I mean, I think that's the main takeaway is, we've been kind of talking about it for quite some time on the show, talking about how, people have been quietly in the community gathering CRTs and kind of stashing them away. And, especially some of those old old Sony CRTs, like sort of end of, peak CRT, if you will, at the end of it, how those were, hard to come by and certainly something worth picking up. And now just, I think it's hit mainstream with Wired doing a major article on it, talking about, the eye blistering buy it now price on eBay for some of these Sony TVs hitting like $4,000, and, people bitching on different subreddits about the cost of CRTs. And, why they're so expensive and stuff like that. And, people using FPGA technology and wanting to play on a CRT and things like that. And it's just, I think unless, I think we did an article a few years ago about like the last Polish CRT factory in the world shut down or something like that. I mean, will there eventually be a place where, somebody fires one of these plants back up and starts making them again or something? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's something that happened with Polaroid. They shut down all their stuff, and then a group started up called the Impossible Project, which started off just basically collecting stocks of Polaroid film that was, shops weren't able to sell it anymore, so they were taking it off them, and then they were then getting it into the hands of, the people who wanted to still use Polaroids. They ended up buying an old factory and sort of getting it. They had to do a load of work to sort of change a lot of the machinery to use new chemical processes, but essentially, developed a way of making a whole new sort of, authentic Polaroid film, because they needed to, have all of the old machinery that was all the old sizes and, form factors to be compatible still. So even with the new chemical makeup, they still needed the old stock. But they did that, and it was kind of expensive, but compared to the prices of what some of the films had got to, that were getting in short supply, it was actually a pretty good deal, and they were quite good quality as well. They were sort of they're not drastically improving it and ruining that, making it too good. But they were certainly, it was a bit more predictable, say, and reliable. So maybe there is a thing for doing that with CRTs. I don't know. I mean, it's a more expensive item. I would imagine the machinery is probably more expensive, but then there's potentially more of a profit margin that you could make.
Well, one of the interesting things in the article, them talking about how that they spoke with the co-founder of Barcade, a vintage arcade bar, and they basically said, look, like, we expect the secondhand supply of these things to hold up for another decade or so, but after that, it's, emulation's coming, because we don't know where these are going to continue to come from. And, they're all dying a slow death with the capacitors going and things like that. So
a school I worked at a few years ago, we had the BBC come in and do some filming for TV, and they brought down their outside broadcast vehicles, and we had a look through them. They gave us a bit of a tour around the vehicles, and all the outside broadcast vehicle was lined with flat screens, where video feeds were coming in, where they were mixing sound levels and all that kind of stuff. And then there was a room at the end where they did for the final production, where they synced up the sound and video together, and they were using CRTs, so there was no lag on it, and so they could get it perfectly timed. So I don't know if they still use CRTs. It was a few years ago, but they still had them for doing that final process.
That's interesting. Yeah, and there must be like medical machinery as well that you'd think, I wonder if they're using CRT imaging stuff that might be problematic to convert over to LCD, and so there'd be sort of those kind of professional applications. I would have thought are more likely to keep something alive than a handful of enthusiastic
building name camps.
I had my daughter in Sunday school last year, and we had to watch some kind of like parent teacher or like child sort of orientation video, and we were in this like big like hall, and they kind of like wheeled a TV in, and it was like on the stand with like the big red strap, and it had a VHS player, and I thought like, Jesus, like this was around 30 years ago when I was her age or something, like, and I was thinking like, man, I should give them an offer on this giant CRT that they have here.
Yeah, we always used to have them when we were in primary school, certainly. They'd wheel it in on a trolley. It was like a big cabinet, and then they'd open the cupboard doors at the front, and there's a big CRT in there.
Yeah, like that's probably where they're all going to come from, is like these old churches and shit that like are still using them,
Yeah.
Well, there was a time where like my ex basically had to put a one in, one out policy on me, because people were just they were just giving away CRTs for free, and I was just I'm just like, yeah, I'll take your CRT, and just fucking was piling them up in my room, and the problem was that this was to the degree where and I was passing them on to other people as well that would need them, and like. It was to the point where I went and got some tires for my car at one point, and another customer was in there, and he was just like saying to one of the lads behind the counter, was just like, I don't suppose any of your guys want a TV, do you? And he was like, why? What kind of TV? And he's like, just an old, like this old big tube one. And he was like, nah, they've all gone to LCDs and stuff, mate. And I was just like, well, I'll take it. What do you want for it? And he's like, no, I just want rid of it. Just want someone to take it off my hands. And I was like, all right, give me your address, phone number. I'll come round and pick it up when after later on today. And just went round and picked up this like 28-inch widescreen TV, and then I then passed that on to someone in Doncaster pretty much straight away, because at the time I had a big, huge Trinitron widescreen. That I ended up giving that away because I didn't want to move it. It took 3 of us to get it up to the 3rd floor attic of my old house. When it came to moving house, I couldn't deal with moving it again, so I just said on Gumtree, I was just like, if someone wants to come and collect this, if they do all of the lifting, they can have it. So someone did come and take that away. But yeah, it got to a point where charity shops used to have a few CRTs in them every now and again, and they'd be like 5 or 10 quid. Sometimes there were some good ones, but they all had to basically put a blanket, it seemed, all over the country all at once. They all stopped accepting them because they were just too bulky and they weren't shifting them. So then no one had anything, nowhere to get rid of them, and they all just ended up going to all the local what they call recycling centres, but for stuff like that, I would imagine they probably just got landfilled and smashed up. And
there was a recycling center near me that, like take old crappy furniture and stuff to it, and they just had a mountain of old CRTs, and this was maybe 5-6 years ago. And like you were talking earlier in the show about sort of like, peak time when you could just go in and pick up old Nintendo games or, GameCube for a few quid or whatever, like we've passed that point for CRTs, and it's like precipitously falling off a cliff. Like, the prices are just going to skyrocket here on out. So if you have the opportunity to get some, it may be worth grabbing a few and sitting on them, especially if you have some old arcade machines.
And the problem, so I've got 2 left. One is getting a bit weird geometry-wise. So that's a bit of a shitter. That's a sort of 24-inch Trinitron, and then I've got another a bit quite small Trinitron, which had a VHS built in, which never worked properly because it had some sort of crazy auto tracking system on it that it would just inevitably go broken after like a month, and no matter how many times you got it serviced, it would fuck up. But the tube on it is kind of one step down from a BVM. I think they called it Trinitron Black or something. Really, really crisp, played like played loads of Dreamcast stuff and PS2 stuff at uni through it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But last time I sort of booted it up, it's kind of looking a bit bluey green. I think there's some some caps going, and so it's like, okay, these are all going to need, new, all the sort of the caps on them are going to need changing, and they're going to need some serious work on them. Yeah, just a bit of a shame. So if you are holding on to them, just keep an eye on them, because they're not just going to stay nice forever.
So I'm looking at my local Craigslist right now, and this gentleman has a 36-inch Trinitron with a stand. He says it weighs 210 pounds.
Yeah.
And he wants
That's the same as Otis Redding.
He wants $125 for it.
It's two random Daves.
Yeah.
Do you think that's worth it?
How much was it? Did he say? Sorry.
$125.
Make him an offer.
What do you think I should offer on this?
I've not really looked at the prices these days.
Depends how much you really want it. I mean, if you really want it, offer him 90 and you'll go around and pick it up.
Yeah.
If I was going to get a widescreen Sony again, CRT, I would get is it Vega or Vega? That line that they did sort of after the Trinitron stuff, because the Trinitron I had widescreen, it was really it was good and capable, but it had real bad geometry, from day one. And I remember my parents getting one brand new, the same or very similar model, and it was always go a bit out of focus towards the edges. And it was always something that bugged me about it. Whereas the later ones, they sort of got them quite a bit sharper. So it's something to keep an eye on with the widescreen Sony stuff, I think.
He's throwing in the original stand that it came with too.
Woo! That's the clincher.
That's actually quite important, because a lot of them they were built to sit on the stand and not really very well on anything else. Certainly the model I had, it had this glass shelves and these three thick triangular legs that basically slotted into these feet, the same sort of thickness. They were kind of like 10 centimeter diameter, sort of hollow legs. So they'd lock into them on the bottom of this TV. But if you then didn't have that stand and just sort of put the TV on anything else, it kind of, the pressure points were never quite right. It never felt like it was going to be terribly nice to either what you're standing it on or the actual feet brackets themselves.
Stay tuned next month to see if I'm the proud owner of a Sony Trinitron 36-inch.
I mean, what you need is, if this was a Kickstarter, you'd be all in there. You'd be.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Someone should Kickstarter's new CRT.
I can't tell you how many cooking things I've bought off Kickstarter. I just bought some kind of. Hold on, let me pull it up with my latest. Let me log into Kickstarter. It's ridiculous that I constantly get some email and I'm like, it sounds good. Let me get some kind of clone your own plants or puzzle. Let's see. Oh yeah. I just backed a new skillet. What is it? Some kind of non-stick pan.
You can buy them anyway.
I was gonna say.
No, but this one's called the Mellow, and I don't know. They have some kind of really interesting like sciencey sort of sizzle video, and I'm like, oh, that looks high tech. Like,
need one of those.
yeah, need one of those. They put like a bunch of like nails inside the pan and kind of like swirl them around. It doesn't get scratched, and I was really impressed at the time when I was like, oh yeah, I need that. And it has some kind of goofy lid that you can like pick it up by the lid. I don't know. Maybe it's like a giant suction cup lid or something. I have no idea. It'll probably be a piece of shit. Like half the stuff I buy off Kickstarter, I'm just like,
this sounds like when I used to go to the what was it called? There's basically a food show in the UK, big one every year. I used to go to that, and one of the years I went, there was a great time I went where there was this big fight across. There was like they put everything into sections, and there was like the knives section, and there was this guys that were Sheffield steel knives, and these guys that were Japanese folded forged knives, and they were just spent the entire thing just fucking shouting insults at each other about how like Japanese folded steel's the best. No, Sheffield stainless is the best. So that was great. But there was one year that the big hot shit thing was fatless frying. And so, they were like, everyone had these pans where you'd cook fried eggs, you just crack the eggs into them. And then, you didn't need any fat in there. They'd just sort of float around on the thing. And I did actually end up buying one of the pans, and it lasted. The coating didn't last. That lasted probably 6 to 8 years, but it was still a really good pan that lasted another ages. And I left that with my ex and bought another one when I moved in here. And again, the coating, didn't last so long, but the pan is basically the one pan that I use for every meal. So, there is something to a decent pan, but whether it needs to be reinvented on Kickstarter, when I've clearly been using these for the last 20 years. And
right. The problem with that pan is when the coating comes off, it gives you incurable disease.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
He's already got one of them. Exactly. Welcome to Retro Cooking Roundup.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
flashback.
I bought some kind of like ergonomic pizza slicer and like a collapsible cup, and
that's the problem I find with pizza slicers: the lack of ergonomics.
I don't even eat pizza. I haven't eaten pizza in 5 years.
Has anyone watched Cobra or remembers watching Cobra?
Oh, years ago.
So I had this really fucking amazing pair of scissors made in Sheffield, which I used to use for cutting up chicken fillets, and obviously don't need them anymore to cut chicken fillets. And they've been sat there for ages, not really having a decent thing, except for I think I cut some aluminium sheet with them at some point. But recently we've been getting pizza, and our pizza cutter's just not really been working very well, and it's just been annoying me and just dragging toppings everywhere. And the other day I just looked at those scissors and remembered the scene in Cobra where Stallone just fucking cuts his pizza up with the scissors, and I was like, wait a minute. Sure enough, they are the fucking best way to slice up a pizza, is just with these really good meat scissors, and just fucking cut through it. Perfect.
Yeah, Paula cuts pizza with scissors.
Yeah, genius.
Yeah.
That's what you want. Ergonomic as fuck, that is.
I'll tell you what I want. I want to go and do something else. And we've reached the end of news, so I'm going to do it. So, thank you for sticking around for our culinary section. More culinary goodness next month, obviously. Thank you to those who joined us in live news on a busy Memorial/Bank Holiday weekend. I noticed Simon Butler was in there at some point. I've just spotted him pop up. So, thank you for listening to us live if you did. Thank you for listening to the podcast if you did. And we will catch you again next month. But, of course, listen to the rest of this show before you go on to your next podcast. So, good night, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
One out.